All right, we'll go ahead and start roll.
Commissioner Lyday. Commissioner Diaz.
Here.
Commissioner Bray. Commissioner Wagner. Commissioner Kreiner. Commissioner Calandra. Chair Vane.
Here, thank you. And please note that Commissioner Kreiner, he might show up, he might be tardy. So if he does, then I'll go ahead and interrupt the session and announce that he's here, okay? Before we start, I do want to announce that we have a new commissioner. If you can, I want to go ahead and give you a couple minutes just to introduce yourself.
Good evening. I'm Linda Calandra, and in another life, I actually sat in this seat as a council member a long time ago. And it's really a delight to be back in public service in a little different capacity. And I really believe that land use and neighborhood preservation are some of the most important things that can be decided for a community, and they really impact your quality of life.
My apologies, Commissioner. Do you mind if you put the mic closer? I just have some individuals
okay.
in the audience.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. I hope you don't want me to start over. But I'm really delighted to be here, and I look forward to working with all of the Fresno community to make it just a better place. So thank you.
Thank you, Miss. Appreciate that. We'll go ahead and start the meeting today with the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone, if you can, please stand. Ready? Begin. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, I'll go ahead and read the procedures for the meeting. Everyone, please, if you guys need to find a seat, please find a seat. This meeting is being conducted in person and electronically. The public may participate in tonight's meeting by using the Zoom link provided on the Planning Commission agenda. Please note that all virtual participants will be on mute until they are called upon by the chair, at which point they will be unmuted. If you're a member of the public and would like to comment on an item, use the raise hand function on Zoom. To avoid any confusion, please wait for the item you desire to comment on to be called by the chair before electronically raising your hand. For each matter considered by the commission, there will first be a staff presentation, followed by a presentation from the project applicant. Testimony from supporters of the project will then be taken, followed by testimony from those in opposition. The applicant will have the right to a final rebuttal presentation prior to closing the public hearing. In accordance with Section 13 of Article 2 of the Planning Commission Rules and Regulations governing length of public debate, all public testimony from those in support and in opposition of the project will be limited to 3 minutes per person. The 3 lights on the podium next to the microphone will indicate the amount of time remaining for the speaker. The green light will be turned on when the speaker begins. The yellow light will come on with a soft bell ring when 1 minute is remaining. The speaker should be completing the testimony by the time the red light comes on with the final bell indicating time has expired. All in-person public testimony must be presented to the commission at the podium. Any testimony that references race, religion, ethnicity, economic status, national origin, or any other classification protected under state or federal law in a derogatory manner shall be deemed irrelevant and will not be considered by the commission in making its land use determination. If you challenge these land use matters in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised in oral or written testimony or before the close of the hearing. Start today's meeting with the approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
Good evening, Chair Vang, members of the Planning Commission. I'm Israel Trejo with the Planning and Development Department. There are no changes to the agenda. Just briefly, some of the neighbors have asked to speak in order, so if okay, I'd like to provide these speaker cards to you. One package, they would like to go in this order, and these other 2 just random.
That's fine.
Thank you.
And just for clarification, when we do go out to the public, these are for or against?
I didn't look through them, but I believe they're in opposition.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. Do we have, please note, we have Commissioner Kreiner just entered. Do we have a motion by the commission to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Commissioner Bray, a second by Commissioner Diaz. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Motion's approved. Under the consent calendar, we have meeting minutes for April 17th, 2024 and May 1st, 2024. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Kreiner, a second by Commissioner Diaz. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Motion's passed. Do we have any reports by the commissioners? I see none. We're going to move to new matters. We have the item ID 24118. This is for our responsibility over here. We're going to go ahead and elect a vice chair. I'll go ahead and make a motion to elect Commissioner Bray for the vice chair.
Second.
All right. Motion made by me, Chair Vang, second by Commissioner Diaz. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Congratulations, Vice Chair Bray. All right, so we have item ID 24664. That one will be continued to June 5th, 2024. Next, we have item ID 24651. And Chief, just before staff starts, what I want to do is I want to make sure that every single person has an opportunity to speak, just because we are limited on time in regards to us hearing everybody's testimony. So in order to accommodate for every single person, I'll make a motion to make the time for each individual from 3 minutes to 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Okay.
Second.
So that's, if you reduce that, it's 30 seconds, that's 50 minutes. Okay. Motion made by me to reduce the time from 3 minutes to 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Do we have a second?
There's a second.
All right, we have a second by Commissioner Kreiner. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Okay, motion's approved. Staff, go ahead.
Sorry. Okay, thank you, Chair Vane, members of the Commissioner. My name is Rob Holt. I am with the Planning and Development Department. And tonight, staff brings forth consideration of an appeal of the development permit and related environmental finding. The subject property is bounded by West Herndon Avenue to the south, Prospect Avenue to the west, and Fir Avenue to the north. The subject property is surrounded by single-family residential neighborhoods to the northeast, east, south, and further west beyond Valentine, as well as Orchid Park to the north, vacant land to the west, and an elementary school to the northwest. The land use and zoning history of the property prior to the general plan that was adopted on December 18th, 2014 was formerly neighborhood commercial. After that general plan update, the subject property was changed from neighborhood commercial to urban neighborhood residential, along with its corresponding zoning district of RM2. And with that, it is surrounded to the east by urban neighborhood residential, to the north from open space, to the west with that vacant land is employment office, and south is the medium-low density residential single family. The project is required to comply with development standards of its current RM2 zone district, and that would include all of the following, starting with walls. An acoustical study was required due to the subject property's location in close vicinity to Herndon Avenue, which is designated as an expressway. That requires acoustical studies to be done, which it was. The code requires that an 8-foot wall be proposed along the Herndon Trail, which is adjacent to the southern property line of the subject property. The density requirements of the RM2 zone district allow for between 16 and 30 dwelling units per acre, and the proposal is at just the lower half of that range at 22.16. The height requirement of the RM2 zone district is 50 feet maximum allowable. Here you can see the four-story building, which has the highest peak height up at 49'10" to the top of ridge. And that's just the one building for the four-story along Herndon, as well as 3 other three-story buildings proposed at 41 feet in height. This is a depiction of the site plan, kind of understanding where those are located. So the four-story again along the south, which is Herndon Avenue. Three-story just north of that along Prospect, and the other 2 3-stories along Fur, as well as enclosed garages for vehicles to the east along next to the single-family residential properties to the east, and amenities such as the swimming pool area, community building, which includes a lounge and a workspace, as well as the leasing office, and a dog park kind of tucked to the west along Prospect by the four-story building, as well as balconies and patios. It also includes a private gated entrance from Prospect Avenue, as well as an emergency vehicle access connecting to Fur Avenue, pedestrian gates along Fur, as well as along Prospect. The open space standards have an allowance for reduction in open space up to 25%, which was allowed for based on one of 3 factors, one of them being that the subject property is across the street, a local street, which is Fur Avenue, within a public park of 400 feet of the site area, as well as providing an improved pedestrian path to and from the site, which the pedestrian access points on Fur would lead to the sidewalk, and there is an improved pedestrian walkway just east of the site that leads across the street and back west over to the park, all improved sidewalks. The setbacks requirements of the subject property for RM2, the front is not applicable pursuant to the municipal code, which the front would be located on Herndon, based on our code designation of high-class Herndon Avenue on a corner lot, as well as the interior side, which is to the east along those garages and that adjacent single family. That is a minimum requirement of 5 feet. What's proposed is 10 feet to the accessory structure, which is the garages, providing compliance, as well as could be noted that the nearest building to that property is the four-story, which is approximately 95 foot 9 inches away. The street side is considered along Prospect Avenue, which is required a minimum of 15 feet, where proposed is 24 foot 4 inches. And the rear, considered along Fur Avenue, is again another requirement of 15 feet, but proposed is 21 foot 8, all complying with the minimum setback standards. The lot coverage standard allows for a maximum of 50%. The proposal is at 33%, providing that compliance. And the Expressway Area Overlay District, this is located, this is designated for all properties near expressways, thus being along Herndon Avenue. And there's a requirement indicated as a development standard in the code that states that no building erected within 200 feet of right-of-way along that is allowed unless, with the exception that if an acoustical study is completed that has recommendations of sound mitigation for interior noise levels, then a building can be no less than 75 feet from the center line of the nearest moving traffic lane. And so an acoustical study was completed that provided that mitigation for the interior noise decibels. And then because it's a development standard, the minor deviation application was submitted, which allows for up to a 10% reduction in development standards. And that standard would have been the 75 foot, which reduced it to a allowable of 68 foot. Thus, that was approved with findings, and the nearest proposed building, which would be the 4-story building, is at 68 feet from that center line. The parking requirements for 82 two-bedroom dwelling units, which is what's proposed, equate to a total of 123 parking spaces, of which at least 82 are covered, resulting in 41 uncovered. What's proposed is 154. In total, covered is 99, which includes 72 carports and 27 garages, as well as 55 uncovered stalls. There were 2 meetings held for this project. One was the Council District 2 Project Review Committee, held on June 14th, 2021, and concerns were brought forth by the public, including limited parking, potential traffic issues at Herndon and Prospect, four-story building not suitable for the surrounding area, and the project would create a precedent for vacant property adjacent to the subject property, which would be the western property, the office. Ultimately, the committee recommended denial of that project with 2 votes to 1. And then a neighborhood meeting was held in August 2021 where staff explained project details, and the neighborhood expressed similar concerns from that committee meeting, as well as those expressed within the appeal and written correspondences, which I'll go over here in just a minute. So the appeal happened after the posting of the notice of action, which is what was required after approval, and that was posted on March 25th, 2024. The appeal period ended on April 9th, 2024, and between that time, staff received 8 appeal letters as well as 24 written correspondences, all in opposition. The major appeal concerns brought forth to staff included the following. One was no other high-rise complexes are located anywhere in the area, and proposed buildings would tower over the neighborhood. As analyzed previously, the required allowable maximum height of 50 feet is complied with. Thus, that standard is complied. The high density does not fit given parameters of the space or area of the property. The area of the property at 3.7 acres with 22.1 dwelling units per acre complies with between 16 and 30. So that is in compliance. There's no room for increased traffic and resulting in the overflow of parking. Again, there was an excess of parking based on code requirements, so that is in compliance. Fire services are unable to reach the 4th story. Certain fire department requirements for the 4th-story building are included in the conditions of approval within the revised fire memorandum dated May 6, 2024. Pursuant to adopted policies by the Fresno Fire Department, as allowed by the California Fire Code, there are alternative means and methods that allow for compliance with the California Fire Code requirements. Not going further into that, we do have fire department personnel in audience tonight to answer any questions relative to those issues. Increase in traffic congestion along Herndon and Prospect, and a traffic study was not provided. It was determined through the ITE trip generation manual as reviewed by the Public Works Department and provided in comments that the peak trip generation for the project would not exceed the threshold that requires a traffic study, thus it wasn't required and thus not provided. And then the last major issue was the project could affect traffic patterns for takeoffs and landings from the Sierra Sky Airport. And it's noted that this subject property falls within both the Sierra Sky Airport and Fresno Yosemite International Airport within the Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan. Zone 6 for the Sierra Sky and Zone 7 for Yosemite International. Both of those have no limitation on dwelling units per acre. Also, the aircraft accident risk level is considered to be low in both those zones. Furthermore, airports did review this and provide comment that any objects over 100 feet tall were to be reviewed. And with a peak height of 49 foot 10 inches, that did not meet that threshold. And additionally, staff did use the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration's tool for notice criteria tools based on height and based on the site, the location, elevation of the property, as well as elevation of building, the tallest peak building. It was determined by that tool from FAA that the project did not exceed the notice criteria, not requiring any further notice. And then all other concerns have been provided and analyzed within your staff report. That said, that concludes staff's presentation. We recommend denial of the appeal and uphold of the director's decision based on compliance with the code and findings. Can you leave that one up? Thank you. Just go to the last slide. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. I do have a question for you. What's the distance from that property to the nearest school?
To the school?
Yes.
That would be approximately, I don't know off the top of my head. As the crow flies, I do not know.
Okay. Other questions going to be, I noticed that these meetings were held in 2021. Do we have any more recent meetings from the applicant or from the city?
No more recent meetings than those two meetings.
Any questions from the commission? Go ahead, Ms.
I have a question. If you could please explain the difference to me in the characteristics of the RM1 and the RM2 zoning, areas. One is the urban.
So one is medium-high
Multi-
density and one is urban neighborhood. What do you mean by can you define characteristics?
Well,
Density?
yes, there's a definite difference in density, but what makes a piece of land RM1 and what makes it the RM2?
Whatever it's designated at time of adoption from council from any zoning action. So if a rezone were to occur and it's RM1, the council would need to adopt for that. But the differences in terms of density would be RM1 is 12 to 16
Right.
dwelling units per acre, RM2 is 16 to 30.
Okay, so there's no real defining characteristics of how one fits in a neighborhood better than another?
Correct. I mean,
Thank you, Commissioner Calandra. So the definitions as found specifically in the general plan really relate to identifying locations where there's greater access to transportation, higher capacity roadways like Herndon Avenue, proximity to retail, and so shopping, office, jobs, right? So allowing for higher intensity. And there are also additional, in the general plan, there are also additional definitions as it relates to the scale and the massing and that sort of thing, which we can get for you in just a minute here.
Do we have any other questions from the commission? All right, thank you. Do we have the applicant here? For those who are standing, may you please find a seat? We just, it's a fire hazard, so we want to make sure that all the aisles are cleared.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Scott Vincent. I'm the architect representing Land Value Management, who is the developer of this project. I think that staff's done a wonderful job laying out how this project complies with the requirements of the zone district. This is a property that was acquired that had the zoning in place. And what we have moved forward with is trying to develop with what the city has laid out. They expect on this. This development or this zoning district not only has a maximum density, it has a minimum density as well. We happen to fall in the middle of it. The parking, in all honesty, this project started out as an 88-unit development and was reduced. And part of that was my client's concern about several things. One was interfacing with the single-family properties to the east. And that's when I had given some slides. Could you pull up the site plan, please? So along the east property line, what we did was go in and install single-family garages along there instead of just carports or residential buildings. The other thing we've done with this is the end walls of buildings 4C and 5D have virtually no windows in them because we don't want to be looking into people's backyards. This is all based on being concerned about how the neighbors view it. In regards to the building 5D being 4 stories, part of that is that it's also a mitigation measure in that it actually reduces the interior sound levels coming off of Herndon into the rest of the project and over to the park as well, and surrounding residential homes. So those are all things that were taken into consideration. The entrance of the project, and I've noticed in reviewing some of the comment letters on this, is about the traffic circle. We had no choice in that. That was given to us. The city said, this is here. The ultimate build out is that the frontage road along Herndon that leads to the adjacent elementary school will be removed, and from a new street built from that traffic circle over to Valentine, which will help relieve some of the issues that go on with traffic related to the school. But that is all dependent on the adjacent developer developing their property, unless the city decides to step up and build the street themselves. We have no control over that. We think that we have adequate parking on our site for this. Things that we've done a little bit different is the 4-story building has interior corridors. We think we're going to have some older citizens that are trying to downsize that want to still live in this area, living in here. The interior corridor provides a great deal of security for them and also reduces some of the impacts of the sounds from Herndon Avenue. We've been very concerned about fitting in with the neighborhood. Could you move this to one of the next slides on the... So as you see the buildings, we tried to step it down. We do have 2-story buildings to the east, and I realize there's some single stories further north from us. The park is there, and it ends up being
I'm just
a
going to
nice
interrupt you really
entrance.
quickly. I just want to make sure that we're all considerate of each other too. So if you guys can, please keep those, gestures to yourself then, please.
Okay. Could you move to the next slide, please? So this is the entrance of the project. That's the community building. And one more slide, please. So you're kind of getting a feeling of what's going on here. And again, we're fitting in with what the standards for the zone district are. We acquired the property with the zone district, and that's where we're moving. This project is expected to be a 100% market rate project. There have been questions raised about accepting Section 8. Based on federal law, I have to tell you, I cannot say no, but the reality of it is a Section 8 voucher will not cover the rent that's here. Therefore, someone would have to cover it out of their pocket. Therefore, they would no longer qualify for the Section 8. It just doesn't seem to fit. And this is one of those difficult things that, as an architect, I have to address, because we cannot say no, because we would then violate federal housing law. So that's what we're doing. As the staff mentioned, traffic impacts are well below the thresholds that are required to start a traffic study. Therefore, we are covered under the master EIR in the general plan. The master EIR established those thresholds, and as long as we don't meet them, we're considered not to have a significant or even a possible significant impact. The reality of it is that the morning hours, peak hours estimated for this project, the number of trips between 7 and 9 a.m. is 31 trips. Between 4 and 6 coming home, 36 trips. This is based on the Institute of Traffic Engineers traffic generation or trip generation manual that is a nationally recognized standard. The reality of dealing with this is the fact that not everyone goes to work at 8 o'clock. People go at different times, and that's why, although you expect, oh, there's so many cars there, they're all going to go out at once, it just doesn't happen. And the final thing I'm going to make a mention of is that people will say to me, well, would you live there? And I have no hesitation in saying yes. And part of it is that I live in a custom subdivision near Champlain and Perrin. Within a half-mile radius of my home, there's over 1,000 apartments, and we don't notice them. There's a lot of fear factor when you talk about apartments, and unfortunately, most of those fears are inaccurate. Crime does not necessarily go up if the project is well maintained and well managed, and that's what we expect here. We're coming into a prime area and expecting prime rents. We're not going to let people come in and ruin that value. So that's something that we're at. At this point, I'm available for any questions you might have, but I would also like to be able to respond to anything that may be said in the public portion of this project.
Yeah, it's not a problem. After we allow the public to speak, I will give you some time to have your rebuttal.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you. Any questions
Do
before
we
I
have a
sit
question?
down?
Commissioner Bray? Commissioner.
I'm sorry, your mic's not on.
Rob told us that there wasn't a neighborhood meeting.
There was a neighborhood meeting that we were not invited to.
But you didn't initiate.
We were not required to have a neighborhood meeting. And basically, after there was a meeting that we were told do not come to, we kind of stepped back.
Had you been planning on having
I'm sorry,
Had you been planning on having a neighborhood meeting?
we had not planned on it because, again, we're within the regulations and the requirements for the RM2 zoning. And part of that is we're not doing a conditional use permit, we're doing a development permit. And we're following those regulations.
Commissioner Kreiner?
Sir, could you clarify, I believe it was stated that there was a 2021 meeting, that was the last meeting. What meeting was that if there was not was this the meeting?
Please understand, this project actually first went through Development Review Committee in April of 2020. This project has taken a long time to get to this point. The neighborhood meeting in 2021 was organized by Councilman Karabasi, and that's the meeting that we were told not to attend.
So that was the last meeting that was had, but it was a meeting that you were not invited to, nor was your council.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Any other questions? Commissioner?
Could you talk a little bit more about the green space? It looks to me like the dog park is the only place for kids to play.
No, okay. First of all, let's back up. These are 2-bedroom, 2-bath, which typically do not generate a large amount of children in them. And so that's a part of it.
Please, let's all be respectful, just because when you do speak, you're going to have your time to speak too, so.
Yeah. We do have open space by the pool area and everything. We do have some other open space on the site. We meet the city's requirements for it. So it's not just the dog park. There's some other open spaces. So along over, across the street from the park, between a couple of the buildings, there's open space there for kids to play. And part of it is, just like any other citizens of Fresno, they're allowed to use the park across the street. And this is a common thing. Leo Wilson did similar things with the Cotswolds in the Dominion. Because in the subdivision I live is a pocket park, and their residents come over and use the park, and we have no problem with it.
I do have a question, and it's more of a comment too. I see that there's a lot of individuals here tonight for this item, and just want to make the comment that even though you weren't invited in 2021, I would have loved to seen you being proactive and reaching out to the community just to, it's all right, there's no need to clap. There's no need to clap. There's no need to clap. There's no need to clap because, technically, like you mentioned, you're working within the zoning, right? Which is great. You're working within the zoning, but definitely would encourage you to try to be a good neighbor too, and just have that communication open too. Okay. Do we have any other comments or questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yep.
Chair, before we move on, do we want to define from the general plan Commissioner Calandra's question?
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah, I actually just want to answer both Chair Ving's question that wasn't answered as well.
Go ahead.
Start with that, we'll move on to Commissioner Calandra. Chair Ving, the subject property, edge of property closest to the school at the northwest corner of the subject property is approximately 95 feet from the back of the school property and approximately 950 feet to the front of the school property, just so that's clear. Also, it's the differences in the zone, I'll get to the definitions as well. The only differences between RM1 and RM2, which the subject property is RM2, is density. RM1 is 12 to 16 units per acre. RM2 is 16 to 30. The height requirement, RM1 is 40 feet, RM2 is 50 feet. That's maximum. The interior side setback requirement is about a foot off, 5 foot for RM2. RM1 is 4 foot. And two other things, which would be the rear setback. For RM1, it's 20 feet. RM2, it's 15 feet. And for the open space requirement, RM1 is 20% of site space, and RM2 is 15. Of course, there is that reduction if it meets the criteria, but those are the differences. And as defined in the general plan, I'll start with medium-high, which is commensurate with RM1. So not the subject, but this is what medium-high is defined as. Medium-high density residential is intended for neighborhoods with a mix of single-family residences, townhomes, garden apartments, and multifamily units intended to support a fine-grained pedestrian scale. This land use accommodates densities from 12 to 16 units per acre. And then urban neighborhood, which is the subject property. Urban neighborhood residential covers densities from 16 to 30 units per acre, which will require multifamily dwellings, but still allows for a mix of housing types, including single-family houses. This land use is intended to provide for a compact community that includes community facilities and walkable access to parkland and commercial services. It also supports efficient, frequent transit service. Urban neighborhood is designated for targeted areas with complementary land uses adjacently located. And those are the two definitions and changes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We're going to go ahead and go to the public. So, do we have any individuals who would like to speak in support of the project? Those right there? Okay. Perfect, thank you. Any individuals who would like to speak in support? Do we have any individuals on Zoom with their hand raised? Okay.
Not at this time.
Gotcha. We're going to go ahead and open this to the public who would like to speak in opposition. And what I'll do is, I have this 2 stacks, and now I have 3 stacks. Okay. So I know these individuals would like to speak in order, so I'll start with this one right here, okay? First individual, and my apologies too if I mispronounce your name, please just correct me and forgive me. First individual is Mr. John Zanori. Please state your name. Yeah, please state your name, address, and you have 2.5 minutes. Okay, sir.
John Zanoni, resident, City of Fresno, formerly a resident at 2613 West Spruce in the County of Fresno, currently reside at 3751 West Spruce Avenue. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of this project. I think it's very telling that a minute ago you asked for anybody in favor of it. There is no one here in favor of this project, number one. Number two, all the residential development in this area was completed prior to 2014 when this was changed from commercial to residential. Fitting in with the neighborhood was a comment that the architect made. I think it's pretty obvious by what you saw up there earlier, this project does not fit in with our neighborhood. If I lived to the east in the elevations, I would sue because you are bringing down my property value by having 3- and 4-story apartments looking into my residence and into my backyard. It's very convenient that the architect says he lives at Champlain and Perrin, where there's a lot of apartments. I am not against progress. Progress is great for our city. I was just in that area last night. Do you want me to name every apartment? I don't have time. They're all 2 stories. None of them are 3 stories. None of them are 4 stories. Very convenient for him. You talk about traffic impacts. I'm in public safety. This morning I'm driving down Herndon. An ambulance at 8:20 in the morning cannot get down Herndon, code 3, to go to the hospital because of the amount of traffic that is on Herndon Avenue, which is an east-west thoroughfare through our city. You're adding more apartments, you're adding more people to this area. It's just going to create a bigger problem. With that said, common sense, being reasonable and responsible, regardless of what the code says, regardless of what's allowable by law. In this case, a 4-story is irresponsible. I agree, a 2-story apartment complex would fit into the neighborhood just fine. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Next individual we have, let's please, I think seeing everyone here tonight shows the support for each other already. So if we can, let's just keep those quiet hands, okay? Next, we have Miss Paula Radian. Please state your name, address, and you have 2.5 minutes, miss.
Thank you, Peter. You did a great job pronouncing my name. That's not easy.
Appreciate it.
Paula Meridian. I live at 3877 West Fir Avenue, and I've lived there for over 45 years.
Do you mind if you, can you lower that mic?
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Is that better? I'm not used to
That is.
microphones.
That is.
Is that better? Does it stay there? Yeah. Maybe I'll just hold it. Okay. I'm just kind of vertically challenged. Sorry. Okay, there we go. Okay. Members of the Planning Commission. One of the most obvious issues with this development is traffic due to inadequate infrastructure. The two-lane road north of Herndon Prospect, which curves and becomes Fir Avenue, was intended to manage traffic in a low-density residential development, not high-density apartment development. Let's complicate that with the roundabout, which is very cumbersome to navigate, especially as it relates to emergency vehicles, fire trucks, ambulances, etc. The ingress-egress on North Prospect will add to the traffic congestion, which could potentially back up on Herndon, creating a very dangerous situation, as well as frustrating those people navigating this route to either the apartments, school, park, or multiple residences. Why has there not been a traffic study? Where is the safe walking path for our school children to walk to school, as well as for those individuals choosing to walk in their neighborhood, perhaps to the park with their family? This would promote good, healthy habits in a city that advocates bike riding and walking. We will end with the inadequate parking issue. There is currently insufficient parking when there are large-scale events in the neighborhood park to accommodate soccer and baseball tournaments. Add to that overflow from the apartments that is inevitable based on the allotted parking spaces in the apartment development. I respectfully ask you, with well-researched and thoughtful consideration of the above issues and more mentioned in other appeals, lower the density, acquire more land to provide adequate parking and better roads to handle traffic, and provide a safe walking path to school for our children and their families. These are quality of life, infrastructure, and safety issues. Let us build communities that we can be proud of and add value to those people living in them. Thank you.
Thank you, miss. Again, please, guys, I want to make sure we move this thing along as quick as possible, okay? Next, we have Miss Jennifer Zanoin? My apologies. I have this same issue with my penmanship, so not a problem.
Okay, good evening. Hi. I'd like to read a letter
Please go ahead and please state your name and address, miss.
Hi, I apologize. My name is Jennifer Zanoni. I live at 3751 West Spruce. I'd like to read a letter from Susan Wittrup, who is president of the School Board of Education for Fresno Unified. Dear members of the Planning Commission, excuse me, I'm nervous. I am writing to express my strong opposition to the proposed construction of a 4-story multi-unit housing complex at 7056 North Prospect Avenue in Fresno, California. As an elected official representing this community, it is my duty to convey the concerns of my constituents regarding this development project. Numerous parents and other constituents have approached me with very valid concerns regarding the potential negative impacts that this project may have on our neighborhood. Adding a multi-unit housing complex of this scale will significantly obstruct emergency responders' access due to the narrow streets surrounding the project, and it will compromise public safety. Furthermore, the immediate impact of increased traffic and parking needs in our neighborhood is a major concern. Our community already faces challenges with limited existing street parking, and the addition of a large housing complex will exacerbate this issue. I urge the Planning Board to conduct a thorough assessment of the traffic patterns in the area to accurately gauge the potential impact of this development on local traffic flow and parking availability. Most importantly, I am deeply concerned about the impact that this project may have on nearby Tatarian School. The safety and well-being of our children must be our top priority. Was that my time? Okay, I'm sorry. Increased traffic congestion and higher population density resulting from the construction of this housing complex could pose significant risks to the students and to the staff of Tatarian Elementary School. It is imperative that these potential risks are thoroughly evaluated before any decisions are made regarding this project. Considering these concerns, I respectfully urge the City of Fresno Planning Commission to reconsider the approval of this proposed construction at 7056 North Prospect Avenue. It is essential that any development in our community is carefully evaluated to ensure that it enhances the quality of life for all of the residents and minimizes any potential negative impacts. Thank you for considering my input in this matter. I trust that the Planning Commission will carefully weigh the concerns of the community. She'd like me to enter this as well. How should I do that?
That's fine. You can just, if you can give it to, it's right in front of you.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you. Being nervous is okay. Being nervous means that you care, so. All right, moving on to the next pile. We'll go ahead and start with a Miss Debbie Nard. Please state your name, address, and you have 2.5 minutes, miss.
Okay, thank you. Debbie Nard, 3550 West Spruce Avenue. I live alongside Valentine for the past 30 years, so the feeder street to where we're talking. Planning Commission members, we are here tonight because we are upset about this behemoth project that is totally out of character with our neighborhood. We have been expressing our concerns for the past 3 years. We have contacted our city councilmen, city planners, and other city officials. All of our concerns have gone unaddressed. When we first heard that the project was scheduled to go before the Project Review Committee on June 24th, 2021, we were shocked. Until that time, we were unaware that this property had been rezoned for high-density multifamily housing as part of the 2030 rezone. This was done during the holiday season in 2015 and approved by the City Council in early 2016. The Plan Implementation Committee for the northeast part of the city approved high-density projects for their area, but reserved the right to revisit traffic and density when projects were proposed. The Project Review Implementation Committee for our district did not do this. Our councilman at the time, Steve Brandow, was absent when this 2030 rezone was approved in 2016. We very recently received some records from the City of Fresno that we requested on July 14, 2023. We were surprised to learn that this property was originally rezoned in 2002. Do I have another half minute? Okay. It was rezoned to multifamily, low-density residential, 7.29 acres, and administrative and professional offices, 13.01 acres. It had previously been rezoned as a single-family residential district. The reason for this surprise is that those of us with homes bordering on Valentine Avenue and who used Valentine, which is now called Prospect north of Herndon, since 2012, to enter and exit the neighborhood were not notified. This notification requirement didn't reach those of us in the immediate area who were most affected by this. We understand that this was legal according to the number of feet required, but it was not right. This 2002 rezone occurred a number of years before the elevations, 115 homes, and Regent Park were built. There was a meeting at the school when these projects were proposed. Concerns about density were raised at that time. I remember the developer at that time saying that if we did not like that project, he would build apartments. They are now trying to force a project into our neighborhood, which is far worse than anything we could have ever imagined at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, miss. Next, we have a Miss Hallie Schafter or Hallie Schaefer. Please state your name and address.
Yes, my name is Hallie Schaefer. I live at 3499 West Alluvial Avenue. This project was voted down by the Project Review Committee in 2021. Over 60 citizens from our community sent emails to the Planning Department opposing it prior to the meeting. This was during COVID, so the meeting was held by Zoom rather than allowing people to physically attend. Several residents, including the original developer of this area, attended the Zoom meeting. One of the members of the committee had visited the developer's sister project, the immersion complex behind the Sierra Vista Mall in Clovis. He also looked up the reviews for the Emerson Apartments and found a 2.3 rating out of 5 from 33 results. These negative reviews centered on lack of adequate parking, having to go off-site, noise, and safety. Many of these complaints reference the need for police involvement. The planner on this project at this time sent the public comments to the committee members just before the meeting started, so they only had time to review a few. The neighborhood concerns, traffic, parking, safety, were not discussed or presented at the meeting. One of the committee members brought these concerns up. The chairman of the Project Review Committee at this meeting in 2021 apparently was on the committee in 2002 when the first rezone was granted, and also on the Plan Implementation Committee when the 2030 rezone was completed in 2016. I have 30 seconds?
1 minute. Yeah, 1 minute.
He was the lone vote in favor of this project in 2021. I am told that before the vote, he stated that he did not care about the public comments, traffic, or safety issues. He wanted to follow a mandate of high density. This individual has been on the Planning Review Committee for many years. I'm told that he knew and was friendly to all of the developers. I don't know who appointed him or who he was representing, but it doesn't sound like he was impartial. 20 years seems like a very long time to be in a volunteer position with so much influence. We would like to note the objection signed July 17, 2021, which was signed by 929 neighbors in the surrounding neighborhoods. Done? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Next, we have Ms. Kim Martin. Please state your name, address, and you have 2.5 minutes, Miss.
Kim Martin, 3744 West Buena Vista, Fresno 93711, and I will continue to read Ms. Nard's letter. These signatures were delivered to the Planning Department at City Hall on September 20th, 2021. A confirmation letter was sent to Jose Valenzuela, the planner at the time. This was all delivered to City Hall again last week. An email was sent to our councilman, Mike Carabasi, on October 8th, 2019. This email was sent 2 years before this project came to our attention, but it outlined the 3 main concerns that we still have: traffic, parking, public safety access issues. Traffic. The roundabout is a poorly designed traffic hazard that has caused traffic patterns throughout our entire neighborhood to drastically change. The intersection is dangerous, does not work, and has been universally disliked by residents in the existing neighborhoods. Prospect Avenue did not exist until the Wilson development was built. Before that, the Valentine Frontage Road, which is nothing more than a dirt farm road covered with asphalt, was used to enter and exit the neighborhood. The only reason the Prospect intersection works at all is because the residents of the original neighborhoods now use Brawley or other less direct routes to enter or leave the neighborhood. Many people heading south from Fur do not yield to the traffic going around the roundabout. It is difficult now for people on the Valentine Frontage Road to access Prospect at peak times. This will be impossible when traffic from the high-density development is entering the roundabout from the Prospect and coming south to turn onto Frontage Road or continue on a few feet to turn onto Herndon. It has caused many who used to use Prospect to use Brawley instead. Brawley is a heavily traveled street at peak hours. Approximately 200 employees travel to United Health Centers and many other offices on Beechwood east of Brawley. This is compounded by school traffic that uses Brawley and Beechwood to travel to the school. Beechwood has become so congested that people go up to Locust or Fir to get to the school. This is already infringed on residential streets near the school. This will be exacerbated by this development.
Thank you, Ms. Next, we have Mr. Peter Nunez. Please state your name, address, and you have 2.5 minutes.
Thanks. Peter Nunez, 3717 West Buena Vista, Fresno, California, 93711. I think the architect said it best. The city put that parking circle in, and they just built around it. You don't put a square peg into a round hole. Let's talk about public safety access. Fire trucks, ambulances, and solid waste trucks have trouble navigating the right turn on the roundabout. We have witnessed this. This will be even more difficult in heavy traffic on a street with inadequate infrastructure. The fire truck gets stuck behind the backed up traffic and the school during drop-off or pickup. Brawley, the only other direct access to the existing neighborhood, is also very congested. This problem needs to be addressed before this or any other development is considered. There is also no safe way for children to bike or walk to school from this development. Parking. The park was located behind the school in order to combine their resources with the school for large soccer tournaments and events. Unfortunately, the city built a woefully inadequate parking lot for many day-to-day activities, not to mention the big events. The city granted a variance to build the elevations 7 feet closer to Herndon than regulations allowed. This developer is being granted the same variance. This caused the bike lane that runs along Herndon to be routed through the neighborhood. This has caused the city to put no parking signs along Fir to accommodate the bike lane. When there are big events, there are cars parked throughout the neighborhood in the no parking zones and on the currently undeveloped lots. The city needs to procure more parking for the park while there is still vacant land. The future residents of this development will have to walk at least a quarter mile to park on the street along the shopping center or by the apartment complex across the street. The parking that meets the requirements for this project does not begin to do so in the real world. We are aware that the state wants people to bike, walk, or take public transportation. Most people who do these things also have cars. These cars need to be parked. I would not want someone I cared about walking along a narrow path with trees and bushes to park alongside a shopping center or apartment complex at night. With frequent property crime, it is not safe to leave a car on the public street at least a quarter of a mile away. The existing parking includes garages, which are often used for storage.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, next we have a Mr. Dennis Sniffen. Please state your name, address, and you have 2.5 minutes, sir.
Sure. Dennis Sniffen. I live at 4158 West Kelly Avenue. I lived there, moved there in 1974. Herndon was a 2-lane road with a barbed wire fence on either side. Now it's become the 405 freeway in Los Angeles. I used to be able to go from Brawley to Blackstone and hit every light. Now I'm doing good to hit 1 green. And all this is going to increase the traffic. I'll cut this short by saying I echo everything that everyone before me has said, and I agree with it all. I don't want to keep repeating all of that, but this apartment building, enough said. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Mr. Tim Cohn. Please state your name, address, and you have 2.5 minutes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Timothy Cohn. I live at 4467 West Vandergrift. I'd like to mention that one of my chief concerns is 95 feet from a multi-story dwelling with a view directly into a grammar school. Doesn't seem appropriate to me. After that comment, I'd like to continue on with Ms. Nard's letter. I think we left off with the existing parking includes garages which are often used for storage, forcing more cars out onto the street. The fire department has indicated that some of the planned parking will have to be removed in order to meet city regulations and be able to have the fire department fight fires if necessary. The state wants everyone biking, walking, and using public transportation. I would ask, did you walk, bike, or use public transportation to get here today? If so, do you own a car? If the answer is no, we would ask you to vote this project down until the developer provides enough parking to make the development self-contained. Building a project that forces people to put themselves or their property in jeopardy is not compassionate. The city is aware of the traffic congestion and yet has refused to address it. The city says that this development will generate less traffic than when it was zoned for single-family low density. This is absurd. Their promises to put the road through are 30 years old. It's not reasonable for the existing neighborhoods to have to accommodate more traffic, parking, and unsafe conditions. The infrastructure must be expanded and improved upon before this project is built. Infrastructure includes putting Fur through to Valentine and expanding the parking for the park and school while there is nearby land for this. There is no benefit to our neighborhood, the park, or the school from this project as it's currently proposed. Please do not approve this without someone visiting the intersection during school drop-off and pickup hours. The issues for public safety response will increase with high-density traffic on an inadequate intersection. This is not an urban area, and we do not have urban infrastructure. The state has many aspirational goals which have no proven track record. Please do not approve a permanent mistake that will lead to unforeseen consequences. In 2021, Mayor Jerry Dyer did an interview with In Your Corner, a publication by Cal Bank Trust. "We work for you," Dyer said. "Everyone in Fresno will know that we in government work for them. It's all about establishing a government that listens, keeps its promises, and belongs to the people of this city. That's the culture we want to instill here, one in which every single employee understands that they work for the people of Fresno, not the other way around." Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Ms. Diane Montgomery.
Thank you. Diane Montgomery, 4164 West Kelly, and I'm a resident of Sierra Sky Park. It's all about establishing a government that listens, keeps its promises, and belongs to the people of this city. That's the culture we want to instill in here, one in which every single employee understands that they work for the people of Fresno, not the other way around. We hope that you will keep this in mind when voting on this project. These problems have been piling up for years. This community has not been heard, and promises to us have not been kept. He further states that in the May-June 2021 issue of CV Lux, "I am very disappointed in how Fresno has become over the years in terms of appearance. The fact that we have lost our curb appeal. We don't have the traffic congestion like you see in many of the big cities. Please do not approve a project that towers over any other neighborhood and other development for miles around. Do not approve more congestion near our elementary school park and a neighborhood that already contains all types of housing. We need a development that fits the property and is self-contained, not overtaxing limited infrastructures and resources. The city has not responded to our concerns, and they have refused to give us a requested information. They have mischaracterized this as an urban area, and they have made promises and decisions over the years that have led us to where we are today. Thank you for hearing us.
We still have 45 seconds, Miss.
I know I'm finished. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have a Miss Jennifer Owens. Please state your name, address, and you have 2.5 minutes, Miss.
My name is Jennifer Owens, and I live at 3555 West McGill. The following comments express our concerns regarding reasons why we would like to appeal the development of the property at Herndon and Prospect Avenue and the high-density apartment complex that was proposed. These comments are being submitted on behalf of myself and my husband, where we have lived in the neighborhood for over 28 years. And we feel that this development of high-rise, high-density apartments will negatively affect the entire neighborhood. And I have listed several of our concerns below. The proposed apartment complex does not fit the feel of our neighborhood, as we've stated previously. 3- and 4-story apartments located on that corner will be a complete eyesore. We feel that traffic will be greatly affected in a negative way. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to go pick up my grandchildren and had to wade through the traffic as it is because it's very poorly planned. The existing turnaround on Prospect Avenue is not large enough for emergency vehicles as it is right now, and no plans were addressed to change the traffic pattern. We feel that the parking is insufficient, as was stated previously also. Currently, there are only 2 ways in and out of the neighborhood in order to get to the school, and so the neighborhood on the other side of Tatarian is greatly affected. With regard to emergency vehicles, there are no close-by services that would enable emergency fire trucks to access the top floors in the event of a fire. These are just some of the things that have already been said, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen to our concerns.
Thank you very much, Miss. Next, we have a Mr. Bruce Kalajian. Please state your name, address, and you have 2.5 minutes.
Hi, Bruce Kalashian, 7237 North Gentry, Fresno, California, 93711. I just want to make the comment, Mr. Commissioner, you asked the question to the gentleman, how close was it to the school, and an answer couldn't be given. That showed me that I think the concern for the children's safety was not at the top of the list in that. And I think with all the horrific things we've seen, it's everybody in this room's concern for the children first. You can throw a rock from where this is being built into the schoolyard. It's that close. There's another lot next to the school, and is this going to set precedent so that a lot next to the school can go multi-story? The higher you go, the more range you have. I'm for the children, and I think we owe it to them. If we're going to make a mistake, make it on the side of safety. Keep this down. Make it as low as you possibly can is fine. But the horrific things that have happened are just terrible. And I think their safety comes first. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, sir. Next, we have is this a G. Contristano? Please state your name, address, and you have 2.5 minutes, sir.
Awesome. My name is JT Contristano. I live at 7588 North Spyglass. I wasn't planning on speaking today, but after seeing what was going on, I feverishly typed out something in the last 25 minutes and wanted to give my quick input and sentiments to the rest of the community as kind of stated. We are here just asking for like-kind planning. No one here is fighting development, which I believe is obvious, but there are no other 4-story buildings from 99 to 41. The closest like-kind property with height that is being proposed are hotels east of 41. You can see the Holiday Inn, St. Agnes, Kaiser. Professionally, I'm a real estate broker. As someone who knows Fresno and its neighborhoods in and out, I can honestly tell you this is not a fit or what is intended for the area. Personally, as an investor who owns apartments and plenty of multi-rentals, I can absolutely tell you that the architect is simply wrong when he states that families would not be occupying these units. I personally have families occupying my single units, 2 units, and studios. With the rapid inflation we have all seen, and with more individuals and families all living together, this is just the realistic side of what's happening in today's world. The architect is again simply wrong when he states that he was told not to attend a meeting in 2021. That meeting was had for a completely different project with the adjacent developer, where that developer did attend. He was more than welcome, just like the rest of the community. I think it says more than I ever could about this project that this developer never reached out to the community. He didn't truly try to work with the neighborhood in any way, shape, or form. Oh, that adjacent developer that had that meeting, he did show up. And then after hearing the public, he did agree and decide not to move forward with his project. To move forward with this without adequately reviewing the traffic issues would be a huge misstep. This isn't theory, it's something that can be easily seen, something that can be experienced. I invite all of you to please see the site firsthand. Take a drive down, see how that traffic is with the schools, with the park, everything. It's something that is real. To allow this project to go through would be completely against what the public is asking of you, and I think that's shown here today. Any remaining time, if there's anybody else that didn't like to speak, I'd like to reserve it for them, but thank you for listening.
Thank you, and my apologies for mispronouncing your name too, JT. All right, we're gonna go ahead and move to the final stack, okay? So this one right here, the first individual is Mr. Greg Weaver. Once we finish these cards, any individuals who hasn't spoken, I'll give you the opportunity to speak, okay? Please state your name, address, and you have 2.5 minutes, sir.
Greg Weaver, 3577 West Fir Avenue. I've been a resident in that house for 31 years. It's 3 houses down from Faulkner Elementary or whatever we call it today. I will tell you the traffic in that neighborhood is terrible. You know what? My kids attended the school. We are landlocked by Sierra Sky Park, by Brawley, by, I don't call it Prospect, I call it Valentine's. Valentine, I don't change names a whole lot, you know. Then you got Marks. You've got to realize, and I didn't have time to go to the school, probably, I would venture to say 80 to 85% of the school kids come south of Herndon Avenue. So you know what? I don't know about you. You all have kids probably, or have kids or grandkids. You know what? Would you let them walk across Herndon Avenue to go to school at Faulkner School? No. Everybody is driven there, 85% of them. They come through the neighborhoods. They take Beechwood. They come in on Brawley and come down Fir. You know what? You compound that with daycares in the area. There's one neighbor in our neighborhood. There's 3 generations of family, and they all have their little gig going where, you know what, it just increases the impact of the traffic. You know, the traffic statement the planner said of how many cars per hour, I challenge you on that message. My house backs up on Fir, faces south, the back of the house. Since the property where Tractor Supply and they put the Goodyear's tire, I will tell you this, and I'm going to give you a demonstration, okay? Because if you've ever been to a Bullard football game, you know what? They use a megaphone. So what happens when you use a megaphone? Okay, when they put that new building there where Tractor Supply is, it has increased the sound at our house. You hear it. You hear the ambulance, you have the fire trucks, you hear traffic. There is more because that creates a tunnel effect or the megaphone. Public access and park access, okay? I challenge you to go over anytime to the Fig Garden Loop Park. Look at those apartments across the street. They're using that green access. Every weekend, people from those apartments are doing. They didn't do proper planning there, okay? I honestly think the developer could do a better job in the neighborhood for aesthetics to fit the neighborhood of what is designed there. And The last thing is the parking. The parking is atrocious. I challenge you to go in the morning east on Fur Avenue that dead ends into Valentine. There are cars parked along both sides of Valentine Avenue for the school. When the school was developed, not enough parking was there. The same thing is going to happen to the proposed plan that is there. You know what? If they're going to build it, are they going to build a 5-level subterranean garage to house all the parking? Because you know what? It won't work. My son bought a property in Turlock, very same thing. You know what? I go up there to help him on the weekend on his house, and guess what? You can't pull out on the street without inching out slowly but surely because the cars that are parked in the neighborhood along the streets. The same thing is going to happen in this neighborhood. Okay?
Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Thank you.
Next, we have a Mr. Marcus Moratian. Thank you. Please state your name, address, and you have 2.5 minutes.
My name is Marcus Marutian. I live 3293 West Melody Drive. That's in the Regent Park, parallel to Fur. That would be on the northeast corner of this project. The architect said he lives a half a mile from an apartment he doesn't see. I live across the street from this proposed project. I want to echo what everybody else said. The traffic, the noise, the density, we're all kind of put together here. And you could see when they showed the picture of the finished building, it kind of looked like a monstrosity to me. Basically, that's all I have to say. I urge the Planning Commission to vote down this project. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Mr. Dennis Nard. Again, please state your name, address, and you have 2.5 minutes, sir.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Please state your name, address, and you have 2.5 minutes, sir.
Dennis Nard, 3550 West Spruce Avenue. I'm a retired lawyer, so when I see a project, I look at, in this instance, I see something that was approved, which we're opposed to. I'm looking at what's the other side. What can I do to rebut the argument? So I was able to obtain some documents from the planning department, and also working with one of my neighbors to get records, the complete set of records here, because it appears that we're missing things. I'm surprised to learn that we are not entitled to those records. So how do you defend a case when you can't get the records to support the conclusions of the planning department? I've been working or been trying to get these since early April. One of our other neighbors was trying to get them since July. This morning at 9 o'clock, I got an email from Mr. Jans, finally, citing a couple of cases which in my brief scanning don't really apply to this situation, but we'll leave that up to the lawyers if they have to get involved. But it's been one delay after another, and there's lots of conclusions in this approval that have no supporting documentation, or at least none that will be released to the public. And consistently I hear that it's not in the public interest. Why not? We're the public. It affects us. It affects all these people out here. Why are we not entitled to these records? There's a reference to an audio study. It's not in any of the records that have been produced. There are other studies that are referenced, and it's clear that somebody just punched the boxes and away we went. So I'd appreciate it hearing the people today, because I believe this is the first time that these people have been able to express our opinions, because the records that have been submitted have nothing from the public. And so I want you to consider all of the things that have been submitted to you today when coming to a decision, and bear in mind that whatever decision you make on this property affects a large group of properties and further development. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Mr. John Krikorin. Please state your name, address, and you have 2.5 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is John Krokorian. I live at 4159 West Alluvial. And a couple of things I want to mention. The developer mentioned that he was not invited to that meeting. Maybe he should have asked what was the result of that meeting. There was a lot of opposition. I don't think there was any support for his development at that meeting. Maybe he should have asked. Second is, I serve on the Airport Land Use Commission, and for about a year now, I don't know when the city development approached if they did approach it. It must have been a year ago, because I never remember Airport Land Use Commission taking up this subject. As you have heard, that our homes are our castle. We have a big investment. We invest to buy. We spend money on our houses. When the city does something like this, it hurts. It hits our hearts. That is why we're here. And I want to also mention that I understand, I don't know if this property is big enough for CEQA, but apparently CEQA was not considered in this development. And also, according to that last meeting that I referenced, the city has degraded its code to accommodate this development on this property, meaning that they accommodated this to get it going without city codes being met. So that's another thing. And then the traffic, the schools, all of that was mentioned. Another thing I want to mention, there is no bus stop westbound on Herndon. There is a bus stop on eastbound Herndon, but there is no bus stop on westbound. And these type of projects are supposed to be next to major streets where there's transportation. So in conclusion, I want to just say that, we designated Herndon as an expressway. We're doing everything we can to degrade the expressway designation. This is not going to meet the expressway designation if we approve a large complex like this with that many units. And I would say, please vote against it. This is not the right development. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have a Mr. John, oops, sorry about that. It's the same one. And Mr. Jim Lloyd. Again, please state your name, address, and you have 2.5 minutes, sir.
My name is Jim Lloyd, and I live at 2639 West Beechwood Avenue, Fresno 93711. Thank you for hearing us this evening and for your time and effort on behalf of Fresno, the city of Fresno. I will be repeating basically what you've heard already, but maybe with a little bit of passion. And I recognize that both staff and the architect have acknowledged that their plan fits the zoning standards. What they failed to mention is our neighborhood standards. And while those are unwritten, we all have abided by them. There are no 4-story apartment buildings in our neighborhood, and it's not that we are opposed to apartments. We are opposed to construction that is outside what we have. The planned development is not consistent with neighborhood standards. Secondly, you've already heard the concern with increased traffic, noting that 82 units could potentially add 160 vehicles, and we've already talked about the problem with rush hour traffic, and now you add another 160 potential vehicles. And thirdly, the issue of safety and children crossing from street. We look at pickups, we look at large vehicles, buses, school buses, navigating that, as well as delivery trucks, garbage trucks. All of that concerns certainly the safety and security of our children. And so for that, I would just like to, again, thank you for this opportunity to express myself. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Mr. Mike Sheranian.
Hi, excuse me, Mike Sherinian. I live at 3846 West Alluvial. As an aside, I owned for about 9 years a still vacant parcel next to the offices, one story that Rod DeLuca built. So I'm very familiar. I'm in that park, Orchid Park, literally every week with my dogs. I want to correct something or make a statement. Lincoln Owensby, who's back here, who's a friend of mine and a customer of mine, I own the Elbow Room in Fig Garden Village. Jim Hillscamp, who's the developer, is also a friend of mine. So when I say this, it's because I really believe this. Jim is a customer. He was my landlord in Fig Garden Village. This is a bad project. I don't care how it gets shoehorned in. The architects reference that, comparing it to Champlain and Perrin, my vet out at Waterhouse, I'm there damn near every week. And if you look at the 4 lanes, 2 each direction that circle all around that, it is so easy to get around. It's understandable why all of you allowed 2-story apartments. If you go look at this, you don't need to be an architect or with all the expertise that you obviously have. You need to just go stand there and you're going to go, how is this going to work? Because you go down there and play pickleball on any morning and people are walking their dogs. There's not enough parking spaces at the park right now. Go there anytime around school time. It is so convoluted in there, it isn't remotely like Champlain and Perrin. So I'm just here because personally, I like Jim Hillscamp and Lincoln, and I'm probably putting their business at my restaurant at risk. I'm willing to take the risk, and I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is if this thing goes further and there's a lawsuit. That's how bad this is.
Thank you, sir. Again, guys, we're going to move this along. We have a Virgil Irola, or Irola. Please state your name, address, and you have 2.5 minutes, sir.
My name is Virgil Irola. I live at 3841 West Locust Avenue in Fresno. And I brought some mock-ups to show you folks. I could pass these up. I don't have slides.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's fine.
So I wanted to reiterate what most of the folks have said, and thank you for considering this. The infrastructure there is inadequate. Folks taking their kids to school do not turn up Prospect Avenue from Herndon to get to the school because of the turnaround. It can't be navigated in a pickup truck towing a trailer. It's a high-risk environment. And the mock-ups will show you that they're not the same, that each one is different. But the mock-ups will show you that a 4-story or a 3-story apartment complex is totally dwarfing nearby homes, even the 2-story ones shown off a picture from Herndon. Thank you very much. I hope you vote against it.
Thank you. Next, we have Miss Vicky Westberza.
Hi, my name is Vicki Allen Westberg, and I live at 3629 West Birch Avenue in Fresno. I'm standing up here agreeing with everybody that's talking. The point I want to point out, though, is I'm a retired educator with Fresno Unified School District. My husband's a retired educator from Fresno Unified School District. Combined, we have nearly 60 years of teaching in this community. We have children or grandchildren who are going to Tatarian Elementary, previously known as Faulkner. We're concerned about safety. The project at this size that it presents tonight will house many students, regardless of what this man says. The truth is, it will have 2-bedroom apartments, do have families with children. And it's not old people, because we don't downsize to stairs. This project, at the size it's presented, will house many students. The school boundaries will adjust to have the students in this development attend to Tatarian Elementary. You can see the yard of Tatarian Elementary from that parcel of land. It's like 50 feet. Whatever he said, I'll go with it, but it's right across the street. There's no entrance to the school on the back side. That's a school policy. You have one entrance, and if you have more than one entrance because of the layout of the school being older, you have to have supervision at every entrance. And that supervision has to be a staff member that you end up having them cover it, and then it goes from there. I'll get sidetracked. You can, one of my concerns is those students walking to school. Because if you look at the maps, they have two choices. And he mentioned there's an exit on Fur. One choice is to walk north on Prospect, cross morning traffic without a crosswalk on Fur. I guess there might be a crosswalk now. To Orchid Park, walk through the park, over to Spruce, head west on Spruce for a long block, turn south on Valentine to get to the front of the school. Or, if they choose, they get to walk in, across through the field, up a street that doesn't have any shoulder or any walkway, and around to the school that way. I'm concerned because when I was the vice principal at Tenaya Middle School 25 years ago, we had a student coming to school and got hit by a parent and killed. That was a tragedy I would not wish on anyone. That is something that's heart-wrenching, and it tears you up for life. I can remember the emotions of that day, having students run on campus screaming and crying because they witnessed their friend getting hit by a car, thrown and killed. And those kids have trauma today from it. That is not something you overcome quickly, watching something like that. And we as a school had to handle it. Don't make Tatarian have to do the same thing. Be smart about this.
Thank you, Miss. Next, we have Mr. Dan Esperza.
Good evening. My name is Dan Westberg, 3629 West Birch. To continue on what Vicki started, okay, my other concern is the concentration of the population living in the structures. This is a 4-story building with elevations on the east. On east, Fur Avenue on the north, Prospect to the west, and Herndon to the south, with Herndon Trail behind the complex and the street Herndon. The building is made of wood, and there's a sad chance it catches fire. The fire truck can a fire truck reach the complex in the time necessary? Will the infrastructure allow first responders to attend to the fire and control it safely? The answer is no. Fresno Fire Department has addressed their concerns, and they will not be able to get a ladder truck onto the property and access the fourth floor of the entire complex. That alone should give pause for the project. We want this parcel developed. We need to infill all the lots within the city before we venture out. But this piece of property years ago was zoned business. The area infrastructure was set up with this being a business. Changing the plan now puts residents' children in danger getting to and from school. It now puts a burden on Fresno Fire Department. The bottom line is the development is a bad idea. Please require an EIR to ensure this project is safe for the community. Take the step back to do what is right for the community. Other issues we might have relative to this is the traffic itself. I do not believe for 1 second that the traffic study that has been done is adequate. Anybody who has to exit that area between 7:30 and 9:30 in the morning realizes that you add an extra 20 minutes to any trip going further east than Cedar Avenue because of the density of the traffic. The same thing is repeated in the evening coming west. The density of the traffic adds significantly to your trip. The idea that the green space allotted for this project includes the park. Again, parking is an issue at this area. Parking on Saturdays and Sundays, soccer tournaments, pickleball, softball, baseball, whatever, already take up, I would estimate, 120% of the parking available. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Mr. Rake Kanzanjian.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Rick Kazanjian, and I resided in the neighborhood that will be affected by this project for the last 17 years. My neighbor, Daryl Horowitz, a local attorney, is unable to attend the meeting tonight. However, he's asked me to read the following letter for him. To whom it may concern, my wife and I live at 3630 West Birch Avenue, Fresno, California. I write to object to and ask that the Planning Commission to reject permit application number P2100989 and environmental assessment number P2100989, the project. Our home is in the neighborhood that will be affected by the project. I am advised that this property is zoned for office professional and no reasonable justification has been given to permit a change in zoning or the issuance of a conditional use permit. It appears from the application that an EIR has not been required for the project despite the significant impact this project will create. A negative declaration similarly is not warranted due to the significant impact, which should require a full EIR. Requiring one will also potentially prevent further litigation that may arise if CEQA is not properly followed, as is often the case when CEQA requirements are ignored in the hope a project will be approved without a proper EIR. While additional housing is needed in our city, it should not come at the expense of detrimentally affecting and reducing the quality of life for the current residents, as well as those who might live in the project. Parking is already impacted negatively in the area, especially where Orchid Park is located. Drivers already often drive faster than the posted speed limit for school zones. The increase in traffic and illegal parking will also make it unsafe for those who attend the neighborhood school. More work should be required before the project is properly considered. I hope the Planning Commission will understand this and require more information on the actual impacts, not those conjured up in a manufactured report, especially where this was previously considered by the city when its plan was adopted for the area and the property was zoned for use other than residential. I cannot attend the meeting tonight, but wanted to make sure our voice was heard. Thank you for your attention in this matter.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Mr. Jeff Boswell.
We made the news this week, this morning. Two different news factors were visiting about this. In that report, the fire chief was attributed some language and some concerns about this project. He saw fit tonight to bring or to ask someone to attend. And before I talk to you and express my feelings, I'd like to hear what the chief sent his representative today to talk about, who's with us today. So, sir, if you
what I'm going to do is after the public comments, I'll allow him to speak.
I want to comment about what he's speaking, so it'll take less time if you have him speak before I do.
Well, just procedurally, we're going to have the public speak first, and then we'll let him go ahead after everyone speaks, okay?
Before I quote, though, I don't want to misquote the chief, so I want to listen to what he has to say, because I've read what they said in the news articles, but I'd like to hear what he has to say from the horse's mouth before I comment on them.
I'm not aware of any comments. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and we're just going to go ahead because even though he's a representative, we're in the public section right now. I want to make sure that we stay to the procedures that we must abide by.
Okay, my name is Jeff Boswell. I live at 3823 West Fur. I've lived there for 45 years, and I've watched this area develop. I only live a couple of blocks to the west of the proposal. There's been some attribution of information being withheld by the city. It's not your fault. City attorney's in charge of the Public Record Act request. There are members of this community that have been making Public Record Act requests for the zoning information that's been discussed tonight for the since July of last year. That's supposed to have a response in 10 days. 10 months later, this is the response we got, quote, "The public interest served by not disclosing the records clearly outweighs the public interest being served by disclosure." In other words, we're not answering any of your questions. We're not going to give you any of the paperwork. And so part of the angst that you're hearing tonight from us is because of that attitude. let me also tell you, when I was able to get a copy of the school board's response to the plans and specifications which were sent to them when this project was originally considered, I'd like you to look at that, because the plans that they got and that they commented on and that they got back to you on was a 3-story apartment project, not a 4-story. And I'm wondering how many others have that. Is this a bait and switch where some people were commenting on a 3rd-story apartment, and now all of a sudden it's morphed into a 4-story apartment, and we don't have any information as to why that happened, nor can we get any? Let me go to child safety. This is my big issue. There are no sidewalks between the project and the school to the west of the project to allow any student to safely walk to and from school from this project. At the height of traffic on North Prospect and its roundabout during the morning commute, and school traffic that is again repeated after school with parents picking up and dropping off their students, there is no safe way for an elementary age student to cross Prospect and to walk to school. You were told today that it's 1,000 feet between this front door and the school's front door. There is no sidewalk in that space. There's no way for kids. I had 4 kids that went to this school. I have several grandkids that went to this school. I would not have any of them walk from this project to the school, because there is a 12-inch wide ribbon of sidewalk. It's not even a sidewalk on Herndon Avenue, which you don't want a kid walking along Herndon Avenue. And there's nothing in that vacant parcel. If you want to have this project go forward, make sure there's a safe way to get to school. You saw that big vacant project.
Sir, I'm gonna thank you.
You heard Scott Vincent say.
Well, thank you, sir, but your time.
I'm going to continue.
No, but
they
I
have
allowed
no
you.
control
Yeah.
over the street to the
I allowed you to
school.
go about 30 seconds over, so please be respectful. Please be respectful, and
There
we'll
is
allow
no
the
safe
next
way to the
individual.
kids to get
Can
to
we-
school, and no sidewalk. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Next, we have Mr. Scott Nichols.
Thank you for letting me speak with you tonight. Scott Nichols, 3545 West Loma Linda Avenue in Fresno, 93711. I am opposed to this project in its current form. The proposed 3- and 4-story buildings are totally incongruent with the surrounding neighborhood and the immediate neighborhood of primarily single-story residences. There are no 3- and 4-story buildings within miles of this project. Has the Planning Commission considered the impact this project would have on traffic flow during the morning rush hour when parents are bringing their children to Tartarian Elementary? The traffic circle, which is totally inadequate, will be a major choke point, potentially backing traffic up to Herndon Avenue during the morning and evening rush hours, or when they're picking children up and taking children. If residents of this development don't have cars, they will not have great access to transit. The Zillow walkability index for this area is approximately at 49, which is considered car dependent. There are limited services in the area. I urge the Planning Commission to deny this project or change it so that you're no longer 3- and 4-story. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have a Jan Weston.
Good evening, Commissioners. If I were you, I would have listening fatigue by now. So thank you for listening to me. My name is Jan Weston. I live at 3406 West Spruce, and my home is situated in between Valentine and Marks. So at Valentine's, you've heard, is the elementary school, and on the Marks side, we have a shopping center, and in the middle, we have Orchid Park. I'm just north of Orchid Park, and just south of Orchid Park will be this apartment complex. Currently, we're one of the busiest streets in the area because we're the first street that's closest to Herndon that connects Valentine with Marks. So all the folks from as far west as Sierra Sky Park, if they want to go to the shopping center or the business district just to the east of the shopping center, Spruce is the ideal street to go to so you can stay off of Herndon Avenue. So that's our number one problem. Number two is the school there's no parking there, so everybody obviously has to park along Valentine's Avenue, and then they do the residential streets going to the west, and they come down our street to park. And that's a daily issue. And when they park, then they have to go somewhere when they get their child taken to school. And typically, if they're going to go north, they're going to go through Spruce to Marks to get to north, because that's the most efficient way. So we have this ingress and egress throughout the day. The other problem with the school is when they have an activity, it backs up further onto Spruce. So we live there as residences, so typically if we're going to go down Spruce and want to head west, then we're going to go down a side street to avoid all the traffic. The next issue is in the center is Orchid Park. If there's an activity at Orchid Park, they can park on Spruce Avenue to do it. So if it's a big activity, then again, we get traffic that parks along our street on each side of my residence. And then finally, the last thing is the shopping center is a magnet for traffic. So obviously people are driving back and forth through there. So I would urge you to reconsider that. And oh wait, two other things is that the school and the residents that live in this complex, as have accepted, they are going to use the same route through Orchid Park. And finally, we need to consider what happens to the owner of the lot that adjoins that apartment complex. Obviously, they're going to want to use their property as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All right, next, do we have the final individual that's a part of this group, Mr. Rod DeLuca? Rod, you have, please state your name, address, and you have 2.5 minutes, sir.
My name is Rod DeLuca, 3840 West Alluvial. I've been there 44 years. I developed all the property between Valentine and Valentine, Sky Park, the river, and Herndon, plus Marks Avenue to the other side, about 400 lots. And our people love our neighborhood. You can hear them here. I mean, I'm a builder. I built over 3,000 houses, maybe 1,000 apartments. So I'm not against project. This project does not belong there. It's a bad project, and to me, it's an insult to us neighbors that live there. And I've been there 44 years. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, guys, so now we went ahead and there's no more cards, okay? So any individual who would like to speak, who I haven't called or wants the opportunity to speak, now is your turn. So if you want to, go ahead, go approach the podium, you state your name, address, and you will be given 2.5 minutes too.
Hello, my name is Brett Roos. My address is 2904 West Fallbrook Avenue. Heard a lot of people here that have children that went to the school or grandkids that potentially do. I have 3 kids that go to the school currently. I can tell you when I go to pick them up, that street is probably one of the worst that I've ever encountered in Fresno. It is extremely dangerous. And I think the thing that we're taking lack of regard for is when we're adding additional housing there and how the traffic that's going to be polluted into the area, along with the children that will come in that area and how they'll get to school. I can tell you that Herndon Avenue, that 1 foot that everybody kind of says, it's 1 foot of 1 foot of dirt, a fence, a chain link fence, and another foot of dirt. And children walk on that other foot of dirt. I can tell you what was also there, the chain link fence on its side because somebody ran through that chain link fence from Herndon Avenue. So while I am here to support my fellow neighbors in the area, I also want to say have support for those that haven't even come into the area yet, that want to live in the area, but is this the safest way for them to be there? And I would challenge that to be no. So thank you very much for the time.
Thank you. Do we have another individual? Any individuals, if you want to speak, please feel free to approach the podium, state your name, address, and you have 2.5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Nikki Bradford. I live at 3446 West Spruce Avenue, and I wasn't planning on speaking, but one of the things that I noticed as I was looking at the builder's elevations and the diagrams that he had was that the main entrance into this development is from Herndon onto the roundabout. That roundabout, which I love roundabouts, but this one is the smallest one that I have ever seen anywhere, let alone Fresno. I think you could maybe fit 4 cars if they were moving, going around it. And when you have the entrance and the exit for an 80-unit complex going on this small roundabout, that roundabout won't accommodate it. And I think one person said that a truck with a trailer has a hard time getting around that roundabout. The other thing is that coming off of Herndon, if you were to turn right, if you're heading west on Herndon, you were to turn right into Valentine, that you're going to go around the roundabout. I think there's room for maybe 2 cars, possibly 3, exiting from Herndon. So if you have people having a hard time going around the roundabout, that traffic is going to back up on Herndon because there isn't a turn lane that's wide enough to accommodate it. Thank you.
You still have 1 minute, miss, if you want to continue. Okay. Do we have any other individuals? We'll leave it to on Zoom. Any individuals with their hand raised? Okay.
Not at this time.
Again, anyone who would like to speak in opposition? All right, I'm going to go ahead and close all public comments. Before I have the applicant have his final rebuttal, if I can have the representative from the fire department.
Good evening, Chair Vang and Commission. Ted Simonias, Fresno Fire Department.
So, with this project, I read some of these letters too, so just wanted to get your guys' opinion on the project.
Well, we're not opposed to any projects, and everything that comes through the development team, the development committees, they have to pass they have to be reviewed by our members, and as all the other departments do. This project hasn't gotten a passing approval from, I don't know if all the departments or at least the fire department. We've made notes, as we always do on projects, and until those requirements are met, we will not give an approval. So the issue that seems to be brought up is access, and there's several things that can be done to address that. And we noted that, and I don't know if you have the document that has the comments that we had. The items that are in red on that document are ways to mitigate the access problem, one of which is change the site plan. The other is provide a higher level of building construction that would be more safe. Another one would be fire alarm systems and or additional fire protection systems. But until the requirements for the fire department are met, we won't give it a stamp of approval.
If you have any questions, go ahead, Ms.
Would this project require interior sprinklers?
Every residential
New construction?
unit built in the state of California now requires residential sprinklers.
Okay, I thought so.
Any other questions? No. Thank you for your service, by the way. You're much more brave than I am.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna have, can I have staff answer some of these questions too? In regards to, we have a comment regarding records, the bus stop, airport land use, when that went through the airport land use.
Good evening again, Chair Vang, members of the Planning Commission, Israel Planning and Development Department. So, would like to speak to the withholding of records. We're not aware of that. We'll definitely look into that. But asked Rob Holt, the planner on the project, myself, we haven't been asked for requests for records on the project.
And then how about the comment in regards to when was this project? When did it go through the airport land use?
The project is not required to go through the Airport Land Use Commission. Airport Land Use Commission projects are typically plan amendments that are within airport land use areas. So this was not a plan amendment rezone as proposed. It was a development permit after the general plan update happened in 2014 and up to this date. And then we provided additional, because of it's near the runway, we wanted to make sure no notice was required based on its height through that FAA notice tool, which we used, and it said it was not required.
Okay, and then do we have another individual brought up the bus stop. So we mentioned about a bus stop, the requirement of that project itself.
There was not a bus stop requirement from facts. There's one existing bus stop southwest of the project along Herndon, just outside of that small chain link fence. It's just a pole. And then there's a shelter at the southeast corner across from Herndon Avenue. So you had to cross Herndon southeast. There is a shelter there, bus shelter. But there was no requirement from the Fresno Area Express Department for a bus shelter at this location.
Okay. Do we have any questions at all for staff? Go ahead, Miss.
Are there any other projects within the city of Fresno since 2014 when this RM2 zoning came into place?
For this subject property?
Not for this subject property, anywhere in the city.
Commissioner Kalanda, I'm not sure I understand your question. So
My question is, are there any other four-story apartments in an RM2 zone district anywhere in the city of Fresno?
Not certain about that, but I can think of student housing off of Barstow and 41. That's either 3 or 4 story?
Please be respectful.
Is it 4 story? 4 story. Then there's also housing just north of Bulldog Stadium, Barstow just west of Cedar. That's, I believe, 3 or 4 stories. 3 stories. That's adjacent to single-family residential at 1 story. I don't know the year that those were constructed, but relatively recent.
I mean, the one that is the housing on Barstow, that would be considered the Blackstone corridor, correct?
It's not along Blackstone. It's on Barstow. So
I know, but it's like within a quarter of a mile.
It's east. It's east of Blackstone, so it wouldn't be on the corridor on Blackstone.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Let's please have the applicant. You're fine. Yeah. Take your time.
Apologize, I cramped.
No, you're fine. Go ahead and if you can, just address some of these concerns. I've made a couple notes on here regarding traffic, public safety, sound, but major ones are going to be the traffic and public safety.
Okay. What specifically do you want me to address on traffic?
Well,
because we've gone through and traffic engineering has done their analysis of this. You have to understand how reviews and documents stack. With the general plan amendment, when it was updated, they made assumptions to certain traffic patterns in the area. And when they assign zoning or land use to it, they assume a certain amount of traffic being generated, and there is a master environmental impact report that is done that addresses, it's the circulation element of the general plan, okay? As a part of that, they set thresholds that say if you go beyond this, you're now out of the scope of what we've assumed, and therefore you have to do additional study. This project, as determined by the traffic engineering department, does not exceed those thresholds. Therefore, we are still covered under the master environmental impact report that was generated for the general plan update. So that's where we are with that. Your second question, I'm sorry?
Well, I'm giving you the opportunity. I think you've heard all these individuals in here address their concerns. So I'm actually giving you the opportunity to address some of these concerns.
Well, and unfortunately, many of the issues that I was hearing have to do a great deal with the school. And, you know, schools unfortunately can create traffic issues. As far as parking at the park, I don't think we're going to be a problem for it because most of our people are going to walk across the street if they're going to use the park. They're not going to get in their car and drive to the park and use the park. I just don't see that. But for the most part, I think that we are going to fit in. Yes, there may be some issues. The biggest thing that I'm saying is that until such time as that frontage road is moved, whether we go there or not, there's going to be continuing traffic issues because of the school and what's going on with that. In regards to the fire issues, we have reviewed the amendments that were made, the ones in the red notation on the conditions of approval. There are ways of mitigating the access point to it. For one thing, we're not using a residential fire sprinkler system. This building will have a full NFPA 13 commercial fire sprinkler system, which is much more protective than any residential fire sprinkler system out there. Additionally, there are several other measures in their recommendations to mitigate it, one of which is a quick response fire alarm system. The idea is get the people out of the building as quick as possible. In most apartments, the smoke detectors in an apartment are not connected to the other apartments. We will be putting in a fire alarm system that are connected, so if one apartment starts developing smoke or fire, all of the apartments in the building will be notified of it. And so that's a part of the differences that go on. The code allows for, you know, it's not, at least in this instance, not quite so black and white that you only have one thing. You can do other things to offset the hazards that go with whatever you're proposing. And so that's what we're going to be doing.
Do we have any questions? Any questions? Question for you. Are you, with the developer, any flexibility in regards to adjusting it from 4 stories, 3 stories to 2 stories?
I don't see that.
Okay. Okay. Any additional comments you want to make, or?
I have no others I would like to make, but I'm available if anybody has questions.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Thank you.
Yep. All right. We're going to go ahead and, do you guys need a break? Break? No? Okay. We'll go ahead and keep going forward. We'll bring it back to the commission. Do we have any comments, any motions?
I have comments. This is not the first time we've run into issues of a development coming in without infrastructure. and we hear this over and over all over
Mayor
the
Brett,
city.
my apologies. Do you mind if you move the microphone just closer to you, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
There you go.
So this isn't the first time we've heard of development coming in without the proper infrastructure. We hear it over and over, especially on west of 99. We hear it all the time. So this is a big issue. We also have to make room for the people that are coming, and we need more dense development to save our ag land and all of those things. So it's a tough one. I just feel like personally not enough work has been done by the developer with the community, and I know that the rules were followed, but sometimes we have to ignore the rules and do the right thing. So I feel like this isn't ready for us to do anything on, and I'm probably not I'm in favor of a project like this, but not the way it's been done.
Thank you. Any other commissioners want to make a comment? I'll go ahead. I want to first say, I know that a lot of individuals, they give the city a difficult time, but I think the city, they try their best. So Mr. Hope, he tried his best. He's working his best to work within certain parameters too, okay? And I want to praise you for the work that you do, okay? I think this is a difficult decision here, just because I've driven past there. I go there, and you see how unique that neighborhood is too, okay? The issue that I see here is this lack of communication, okay? So lack of communication, and even though zoning-wise, they're allowed to do this, the difficulty becomes, you want to be a good neighbor, right? You want to be a good neighbor, be a good steward of the community too, and have that conversation too, okay? So with me, it's going to be difficult for me to actually allow for a 4-story or 3-story apartment complex to occur, just because if we're thinking about the future generation, I don't want to be responsible in the future, have my name tied to it, to the fact that I allow for such a apartment complex to happen, okay? But I don't oppose the apartment complex. I think it's just going to be the height, and yeah, those are my comments. So any other comments from the commission? Go ahead.
Is it possible at this point to ask staff to do that traffic study, even though it's not required, but because it is the right thing to do? I mean, I think that traffic circle is a problem, and that street does not have the capacity now. So when it increases, I see that it's going to be a bigger problem. So can we ask staff to do that? I mean, is that something we can do?
So we would need to visit with the city attorney on that. So what the commission has a number of options tonight. So one, you can approve the staff recommendation that's in the staff report. Two, you could approve the project with specific conditions if you can make the findings that are located in Exhibit A for a development permit. And I'm going to walk through those with you right now. Finding A, the applicable standards, the applicable standards and the requirements of this code are met. Finding B, the general plan and any operative plan or policies the city has adopted are met. Finding C, any applicable design guidelines adopted by the city council are met. Finding D, any approved tentative map, conditional use permit, variance or other planning or zoning approval that the project required is met. And finding E, the Fresno County Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan as amended, adopted by the Fresno County Airport Land Use Commission pursuant to California Public Utilities Code sections 21670-21679.5. So essentially you have to find that you cannot, if you're going to make a change, right, you have to make your findings based on one of those 5, right, to make that change that's different from what's in here. You could deny the project. Again, you'd have to identify which one of those you cannot meet and why, right? So the evidence and the record. And then the other option, so option 1, approve as recommended. Option 2, approve with changes. Option 3, deny. Option 4 would be continue to ask for potentially additional either communication or studies to be completed. However, we'd need to confer with council to determine if specific studies can be required when they're not required by the code.
Just forgive me, I'm just reading the findings right now. Do we have any comments or motion while? All right, so I'll go ahead and make a motion. Okay. I'm going to make a motion here. I'm going to make a motion that I'm going to make a motion that I'm going to uphold the appeal for finding B, that it doesn't meet the general plan in regards to urban neighborhood residential plan land use. That's my motion.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion by Chair Vang, second by Vice Chair Bray. Let's, with this one right here, let's take individual votes, please.
Commissioner Diaz?
Yes.
Commissioner Bray?
Yes.
Commissioner Kreiner?
Yes.
Commissioner Calandra?
Yes.
Chair Vang?
Put some respect on my name.
I know, sorry.
Just kidding, just joking around. Yes. So the appeal is upheld.
So, Chair Vang, can you give us some evidence in the record that it does not meet the general plan?
So evidence is going to be, it doesn't meet the general plan. The fact that general plan was based in 2015, I believe it's a living document, does not take into account the significant growth within the city of Fresno. The fact that we're having this 3-story apartment complex is going to have issues in regards to traffic that be detrimental to the public. Is that okay? Okay. All right, thank you, everyone. Appreciate you guys. If you guys can, please. I have 3 kids at home waiting for me, so if we can go ahead and just keep moving forward. If you guys, respectfully, if you guys can go ahead and just sit down. We only have like 5 more minutes left or so that way we don't hear all that noise. Is that okay? Do we have any reports from the secretary?
Chair Vang, the only thing that I would remind the commission of is that we are still in Historic Preservation Month. I would encourage you to look at the Historic Preservation Month calendar and to attend at least one activity this month. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any unscheduled oral communications? I see none. It's currently 8:15. Meeting is adjourned. Everyone have a wonderful evening.